Secret, sloppy, and now a Senate hearing. The group chat screw-up that's now become a stunning intelligence and security embarrassment. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. It's every journalist's dream to get the ultimate scoop, but for Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, he says it actually made him extremely nervous.
Honestly, my reaction was, I think I've discovered a massive security breach in the United States national security system.
He says he didn't believe it at first, but what Jeffrey soon discovered was that he was on a text thread with Trump's closest advisors and privy to war plans, a large-scale attack on Yemen on the commercial messaging app Signal. And here's the kicker. Not one of these intelligence experts even noticed that the odd man out was in the chat. Now, it's not just a scoop, it's a scandal. The secret chat is out, and those within are getting grilled by the Intelligence Committee.
Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the Defense Secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that.
And if there's no classified materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat.
Bringing our White House correspondent Karen Travers, along with Capitol Hill correspondent Jay O'Brien. So, Jay, we watched this hearing all together. Ultimately, is anyone going to lose their job over this?
I mean, that's what Democrats are calling for, Kira, but ultimately that's going to be up to the White House. And what we've seen the administration do right now is defend this group chat. The defense that was really crystallized in this hearing was Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe coming forward and saying that in their estimation, there was no classified information shared on this group chat that was conducted on a third-party app Signal, not a government kind of communication system, but a third-party app. But Ratcliffe said it was all allowed, it was all lawful because there was no classified information exchanged on the app, despite the fact that these were plans about an imminent strike on the Houthis in Yemen. So it's unclear exactly how imminent plans or plans for an imminent attack are not in some way, shape, or form classified. And that's what Jeffrey Goldberg pointed out in his reporting yesterday. I asked the top Democrat on this panel, Mark Warner, does he believe that excuse, that these communications were not classified and therefore all of these conversations were appropriate? Here's what he told me.
Do you believe their excuse that the information in the chat was not classified?
I do not believe it. Again, you can't have it both ways. They can't say, oh, it's not classified. Then reveal it. What will be the breaking points for my fellow Republican senators? So I care deeply about national security. When are they going to find the willingness to step up and say, this was wrong, people should be held accountable, and people need to be fired or removed from their positions?
So Warner and other Democrats, Kira, have called for National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who created the chat, and Pentagon head Pete Hegseth to both resign in the wake of all of this. Obviously, it remains to be seen if that's truly going to happen, because Republicans in the White House have largely circled the wagons in defense at this hour.
Well, Karen, let's talk about the White House and how it's defending all of this at this hour.
Kira, the White House is going after the reporter, Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, saying that his reporting is incorrect. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt put on social media earlier today that there were no war plans shared, there was no classified information shared. As Jay was just saying, it was the refrain from those officials up on Capitol Hill. And they're also saying that the White House counsel's office has provided guidance on other platforms that top officials here at the White House and across the administration can use to communicate safely and efficiently. But Kira, it's also notable to see how they're trying to shift the story a bit and talk about the success of those strikes, get it away from the scandal of the Signal group chat and the classified information that Jeffrey Goldberg says was included in this chat. You know, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said last night there were no war plans shared, and Goldberg said, well, if it isn't that, it was minute by minute details of what was going to happen that day. Instead, today the White House says the focus should be on how those strikes against the Houthi targets were successful, and they should not have Democrats now undermining what took place that day.
Karen Travers, Jay O'Brien, thanks so much. Jay, stick around. I've got another conversation to bring you into. But right now I want to bring in our contributor and former acting undersecretary for intelligence at the Department of Homeland Security, John Cohen. So, John, all the Trump cabinet members testifying today insist the information shared was not classified. As we can see, Dems, well, they're not convinced. But clearly it was a secret conversation. So do you think they used Signal for this text chain because the conversation wouldn't be archived properly?
Well, that is seriously something that investigators will look at. So let's talk about what Signal is. It's an encrypted application. It's commercially available. It's usually used by members of the public, journalists, and others to safeguard their information. While some federal agencies allow employees to use Signals, others do not. In fact, the Department of Defense in 2023, the chief information officer said that Signal could not be used on government systems, whether they be phones or laptops, to share classified or unclassified information that's not available to the public. Secondly, Signal operates on phones. So even if an intelligence organization hasn't compromised Signal, it's very easy for them to compromise an iPhone. And all the people involved in this conversation are high-value targets for Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So every single one of their computers, their phones, their social media accounts are heavily scrutinized and targeted by these foreign intelligence services. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And the first question that needs to be answered is precisely what information was conveyed, because I find it hard to believe that if specific information as to targets and tactics and potential weapons to be used was conveyed in this chat, it's going to be hard to make the case that this information wasn't highly sensitive, if not classified.
Right. How do you make the case? And do you think heads are going to roll? Do you think Waltz or Hegseth could lose their jobs over this? I mean, really, ultimately, they're protected by the president, right?
Ultimately, they are protected by the president, and I guess it's going to be up to the president to make the calculus of how much this is becoming a distraction, how much this is causing embarrassment for the administration. And that's a call he's going to have to make, because ultimately he is the ultimate classification authority, as we've heard multiple people say. But on the other hand, they're kind of making an interesting case where they're saying this is distracting away from the impact of the raid, which was militarily successful. But that is in fact the challenge for the administration, or the problem for the administration, is you had in this case an operation by the military that was successful in targeting the Houthis, which are causing significant problems to shipping in that region of the world. And now the entire conversation on every media station and on Capitol Hill has to do with why members of the president's national security team, members of the cabinet, were communicating over a commercial application, and how a journalist was invited in by those administering that chat group into that conversation.
Clearly, he was in somebody's contacts somewhere. John Cohen, thank you. Appreciate it.